Picture a quiet, snowy evening in rural New Hampshire, February 9, 2004. The air is crisp, the road is dark, and a young woman's car skids off Route 112, a remote stretch in Haverhill. She steps out, shaken but seemingly unharmed. A passerby offers help, but she waves them off. Minutes later, when police arrive, she's gone, vanished into the winter night, leaving behind a locked car, a few belongings, and a mystery that's gripped the world for over 2 decades. This is the story of Maura Murray, a case that defies explanation and haunts those who seek answers. Welcome to the Disappearance of Maura Murray, a cold case unraveling. I'm your narrator, and over the next 5 hours, we'll dive deep into one of the most perplexing mysteries in modern true crime. Let's begin with Maura herself, who she was, what drove her, and the path that led to that fateful night. Maura Murray was 21 years old, a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. Born on May 4, 1982, in Hanson, Massachusetts, she was the fourth of 5 children in a close-knit family. Her father, Fred Murray, was a medical technician and a constant presence in her life, coaching her in sports and fostering her competitive spirit. Maura was a standout athlete, excelling in track and cross-country at Whitman-Hanson Regional High School. Friends described her as bright, determined, and fiercely independent, but also private, often keeping her emotions guarded. Maura's early life wasn't without challenges. She earned a spot at West Point, the prestigious military academy, where she studied chemical engineering. But the intense environment took a toll. Academic pressures, coupled with personal struggles, led her to leave West Point after 18 months and transfer to UMass Amherst in 2002 to pursue nursing. This transition wasn't seamless. In 2003, Maura faced legal trouble for using a stolen credit card number to order food, a misdemeanor that left her shaken but resolved with probation. Her relationship with her boyfriend, Bill Rausch, an Army cadet. Let's zoom in on early February 2004. Maura's life seemed to be unraveling. On February 5, she was involved in a car accident, crashing her father's Toyota Corolla after a party. The damage was significant, and Maura was visibly upset, knowing it would strain her already tight finances. 2 days later, on February 7, she had an emotional breakdown during a shift at her campus security job, crying uncontrollably after a phone call, possibly with her sister, Kathleen, who was struggling with addiction, or Bill, with whom tensions persist. The exact trigger remains unclear, but it was a red flag that Maura was under immense pressure. On February 9, Maura's actions were puzzling. Around 1:00 p.m., she emailed her professors, citing a family emergency and stating she'd be away for a week. No such emergency was later confirmed. She searched online for directions to Burlington, Vermont, and lodging in New Hampshire's White Mountains, a place she loved from family vacations. She called a condo rental in Bartlett, New Hampshire, but didn't book it. At 2:30 p.m., she withdrew $280 from an ATM, nearly emptying her account, and bought $40 worth of liquor, Baileys, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of wine, at a nearby store. By 3:30 p.m., she was in her black 1996 Saturn, driving north from Amherst's plan. What was Maura's plan? The White Mountains are a 4-hour drive from Amherst, and she told no one where she was going. Her car, notoriously unreliable, had mechanical issues, and the journey in February's cold was risky. Was she seeking a getaway to clear her head? Meeting someone? Or something else entirely? These questions linger as we approach the moment everything changed. Around 7:00 p.m., Maura's Saturn veered off Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, hitting a snowbank on a sharp curve known as a Dead Man's Curve. The area is remote, flanked by dense woods and sparse homes. A school bus driver, Butch Atwood, lived nearby and saw the crash. He stopped, finding Maura outside her car, appearing unharmed but shaken. He offered to call for help, but Maura declined, insisting she'd already contacted AAA. No records of an AA call exists, and Maura's phone was later found to be off her dead. Atwood, unsure what to do, drove the short distance to his home to call 911. His wife, Barbara, later said he was rattled, noting Maura seemed out of it. By 7:45 p.m., Haverhill police arrived, led by Officer Cecil Smith. Maura was gone, her damage to the front end. Inside, officers found a backpack, makeup, a road atlas, partially consumed, and a box of wine with some spilled. Most puzzling was a rat stuffed in the tailpipe, a detail that sparked endless debate. Fred Murray later said he'd once advised Maura to use a rag to reduce exhaust fumes if the car was struggling, but others see it as a sign of sabotage. No footprints led into the snowy woods, no signs of a struggle were evident, and tracking dogs lost Maura's scent near the car. The initial police response was swift but constrained. Haverhill is a small town with limited resources, and the February cold, temperatures in the teens, made searching difficult. Police deployed 9 units and a helicopter that night, but the dogs picked up no trail beyond 100 yards from the car. A bolo be on the lookout was issued, describing Maura, I-57, 120 pounds, brown hair, blue eyes, last seen wearing a dark jacket and jeans. Her cell phone, debit card, and most belongings were left behind, offering no financial or digital trail. A neighbor, Faith Westman, reported seeing a young woman walking east on Route 112 around 7:00 p.m., but the sighting was vague and unconfirmed. Early on, police leaned toward a runaway theory. Maura's recent behavior, lying about a family emergency, the car crash, the liquor, suggested she might have fled intentionally. But Fred Murray rejected this, insisting Maura wouldn't abandon her family. The lack of evidence was a major roadblock. No CCTV footage existed in the rural area, and Maura's phone was never used again. Searches expanded over the next days, covering miles of woods and rivers, but found nothing. Volunteers and locals joined in, but the trail was cold. Maura's disappearance wasn't just a single event. It was a chain of choices and chance encounters. Why was she in Haverhill? Why refuse help? And how could she vanish in such a short window? 10 to 15 minutes, without a trace. These questions are the heart of the mystery, and they fueled endless speculation. Maura wasn't just a name in a police report. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend whose absence left a void that's never been filled. As we move forward, we'll explore the theories that have emerged to explain what happened. Was it an accident, crime, or a deliberate escape? Each possibility pulls us deeper into the enigma. But first, let's consider the human cost. Maura's disappearance shattered her loved ones and sparked a public obsession that's kept this case alive for 21 years. Stay with us as we unravel this story, piece by piece. That was the beginning of Maura Murray's mystery. A young woman, a crash, and a vanishing that defies logic. Now, let's dive into the theories that have kept investigators and armchair detectives searching for answers. What happened to Maura Murray after she left her car on that snowy road? For 21 years, investigators, family, and true crime enthusiasts have wrestled with this question. 3 main theories dominate the discussion: accidental death, foul play, or voluntary disappearance. Each has its champions, its evidence, and its contradiction. Let's dissect them, exploring every angle, from the smallest clues to the wildest speculations, to see if we can edge closer to the truth. The White Mountains in February are brutal. Temperatures that night dipped into the teens, with snow on the ground and dense forests stretching for miles. One theory posits that Maura, disoriented from the crash or possibly under the influence, wandered into the woods and succumbed to hypothermia or injury. The spilled box of wine in her car suggests she may have been drinking, and her refusal of Butch Atwood's help could indicate she was avoiding police, perhaps fearing a Dewey charge after her recent car crash. Supporting this theory is the environment itself. The White Mountains are notorious for claiming hikers, even experienced ones. Maura, in jeans and a light jacket, wasn't dressed for prolonged exposure. If she panicked and fled into the woods to avoid authorities, she could have gotten lost quickly. Snowfall that night could have covered her tracks, explaining the lack of footprints. Early searches, though extensive, weren't infallible. Cadaver dogs can miss remains in deep snow, and vast areas of the forest remain unexplored. But the accidental death theory has significant gaps. Search efforts were massive, involving helicopters, dogs, and volunteers over weeks and months. They covered a 12-mile radius around the crash site, including rivers and ravines. yet found no trace of Maura, no clothing, no belongings, no remains. If she died of exposure, where's her body? The absence of physical evidence is a major hurdle. Some argue she could have fallen into a crevice or been carried off by wildlife. But after 21 years, something typically surfaces in such cases. The lack of any trace challenges the plausibility of this theory, though the harsh terrain keeps it in play. Could Maura have crossed paths with a predator on Route 112? This theory suggests she was abducted, either by someone posing as a good Samaritan or by force. The timeline is tight, 10 to 15 minutes between Atwood's sighting and the police arrival. But not impossible. A driver could have stopped, offered a ride, and taken Maura away, willingly or not. Her vulnerability, alone, possibly impaired in a remote area, makes this scenario chillingly plausible. The rag in the tailpipe fuels speculation of sabotage, suggesting someone tampered with her car to strand her, though Fred Murray's explanation that he advised Maura to use the rag for mechanical issues complicates this. Let's examine the evidence or lack thereof. No blood, DNA, or signs of a struggle were found at the scene, which weakens the foul play theory. However, in 2006, investigators searched a nearby home after a tip, finding a knife and a carpet with a suspicious stain. Tests were inconclusive, and no connection to Maura was established, but the discovery keeps the theory alive. Another detail. A local contractor, Rick Forcier, claimed to have seen a young woman matching Maura's description jogging on Route 112 later that night, though his report came months later and was questioned for reliability. The foul play theory also draws on broader context. New Hampshire's North Country had seen other disappearances, like that of Louise Chaput in 2001, raising fears of a serial predator. However, no concrete link ties these cases to Maura's. The absence of a clear suspect or motive, was it random, targeted, makes this theory speculative. Yet the speed of her disappearance and the lack of a trail keep the possibility of a crime hauntingly real. Did Maura choose to vanish? This theory points to her actions before the crash as evidence. Intent. She lied to professors about a family emergency, packed her dorm room, boxing up belongings and removing photos from her walls, and searched for lodging in the White Mountains in Vermont. These suggest she was planning a trip, perhaps a permanent one. Maura's personal struggles, a theft conviction, tension with her boyfriend, academic stress, could have pushed her to seek a fresh start. Canada, just a few hours' drive, was a plausible destination, and a 2005 sighting of a woman resembling Maura in Quebec sparked hope, though it was never confirmed. But this theory falters under scrutiny. Maura withdrew only $280, leaving her bank account nearly empty, and took no ID, credit cards, or significant belongings. Starting a new life with so little is difficult, especially without a paper trail. Her phone was never used again, and no credible sightings have been verified in 21 years. Why would she plan a disappearance so haphazardly? The rag in the tailpipe and her refusal of Atwood's help add complexity. Was she hiding something, or simply rattled from the crash? Let's dig deeper into the witness accounts which muddy all theories. Butch Atwood, the bus driver, gave inconsistent statements. Initially, he said Maura seemed calm and in control, but later suggested she was upset or impaired. His 911 call, made from his home, delayed police response by critical minutes, and his wife, Barbara, later said he felt guilty for not staying with Maura. Faith Westman, the neighbor who called 911 after seeing the crash from her window, reported a young woman walking east, but her timeline, around 7:00 p.m., conflicts with Atwood's account. Another neighbor, John Merritt, claimed to see a figure near the car, but details were vague. These inconsistencies frustrate investigators, as does the absence of hard evidence: no CCTV, no phone pings, no DNA beyond the car's contents. There are also lesser-known theories. Some speculate Maura hitched a ride with a friend or acquaintance, explaining the lack of a trail, though no evidence supports this. Others point to a tandem driver, a second vehicle Maura was following, based on a police report of a car seen nearby, but this lead fizzled out. Online forums have floated wilder ideas. A police cover-up, a secret pregnancy, or even a connection to organized crime. These lack substantiation but reflect the case's grip on the imagination. As we sift through these theories, it's clear Maura's case is a labyrinth. Every clue, the rag, the packed dorm, raises new questions. No theory fits perfectly, and the lack of definitive evidence keeps us guessing. Which do you find most compelling? An accident in the unforgiving woods? A crime of opportunity? Or a deliberate escape from a troubled life? Hold that thought as we explore the ripple effects of Maura's disappearance on those she left behind. We've unraveled the theories, but Maura's story isn't just about what happened. It's about the lives forever changed by her absence. Maura Murray's disappearance didn't just spark a mystery, but a deep, lasting wound. For her family and friends, February 9, 2004 was the day their world fractured. Fred Murray, Maura's father, has spent 21 years searching for answers, his life consumed by the need to find his daughter. Maura's siblings, Kathleen, Julie, Freddie, and Curtis, and her mother Lori, who passed away in 2009, have lived with the agony of not knowing. Imagine waking up each day, wondering if your loved one is alive, suffering, or gone forever. That uncertainty is a torment no one should endure. Fred has been the most visible figure in the fight for answers. A stoic New Englander, he's walked miles through the White Mountains, searching for any sign of Maura. He's criticized the Haverhill police for what he sees as a sluggish response, accusing them of assuming Maura ran away without digging deeper. In interviews, he's shared heartbreaking memories, coaching Maura's track meets, planning hiking trips together, and his unwavering belief that she didn't choose to disappear. Maura would never leave us like that, he said repeatedly. His push for FBI involvement and new searches reflects a father's desperate hope. Even as he's aged into his late 70s, Maura's friends have also kept her memory alive. Kate Markopoulos and Sarah Alfieri, her UMass roommates, have spoken about Maura's warmth and quiet strength, but also her guarded nature. They recall her stress in early 2004, the car crash, the phone call that left her sobbing at work. Say she never hinted at running away. Her boyfriend, Bill Rausch, has faced scrutiny from online sleuths who've parsed his emails and military alibi. But he's maintained his love for Maura and joined early search efforts. The emotional toll on these relationships is immense, a reminder that cold cases leave scars far beyond the headlines. Then there's the media's role. Maura's case caught fire in the 2000s, riding the wave of true crime's rise. The 2016 podcast Missing Maura Murray, hosted by Tim Pillery and Lance Rienstierna, brought renewed attention, diving into theories and interviewing key figures. A 2017 Oxygen documentary, The Disappearance of Maura Murray, led by journalist Maggie Frelling, explored the case in depth, raising questions about police handling. Reddit's R. Maura Murray subreddit, with thousands of members, dissects every detail, from the rag in the tailpipe to alleged sightings. Social media platforms like X have kept the case alive, with users sharing tips and theories, though some posts veer into unfounded conspiracies. This media frenzy has been a double-edged sword. So on one hand, it's generated leads. A 2019 tip about a buried barrel in the woods prompted a search, though it yielded nothing. Crowdsourcing campaigns have funded billboards, tip lines, and private investigators, keeping Maura's face in the public eye. But the downside is significant. Online sleuths have harassed witnesses like Butch Atwood, who died in 2009, and spread unverified claims, like Maura living in Canada or a police cover-up, that muddy the investigation. Fred Murray has called out internet trolls for distracting from real leads. Yet he acknowledges media's role in keeping hope alive. The public's fascination has also driven tangible efforts. The New England 9 search and rescue team has conducted dozens of searches, using advanced equipment to comb the White Mountain. Private investigators like John Smith, no relation to the officer, have chased leads police dismissed, such as the knife and stained carpet found in 2006. Community events like vigils and fundraisers have rallied support, with locals and strangers alike joining the cause. Yet each empty search deepens the frustration. How can someone vanish so completely in a world where technology tracks our every move? Maura's case taps into universal fears. Being alone, vulnerable, or lost without a trace. It's a story that resonates because it's relatable. Maura was a young woman navigating life's pressures, school, relationships, mistakes, who found herself on a dark road, alone. Her story has sparked discussions about mental health, with some speculating she was struggling with depression or anxiety. It's also highlighted the challenges of rural policing, where small departments lack the resources of urban forces. The public's obsession reflects a collective need to solve the unsolvable, to bring order to chaos. Let's pause to consider the human side. Maura's family and friends aren't just characters in a true crime story. They're real people living with grief and uncertainty. The media and public have kept Maura's name alive. But at what cost? The impact of Maura's disparking debates. But the fight for answers hasn't stopped. 21 years after Maura Murray vanished, her case remains an open wound, but also a beacon of persistence. To revisit old leads, ground-penetrating radar, used in searches as recent as 2022, scans for subsurface anomalies that might indicate remains or buried objects. Drones have mapped inaccessible areas of the White Mountains, offering fresh perspectives on the terrain. DNA analysis, though limited by the lack of physical evidence, holds promise if new items are found. Fred Murray, still a driving force, has pushed for expanded searches, believing Maura is within a few miles of the crash site. Specific efforts stand out. In 2019, a tip about a concrete foundation near Route 112 led to a high-tech scan, though it found nothing. 2021, the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit, established to tackle unsolved cases, took a renewed interest in Maura's file, re-interviewing witnesses and analyzing old evidence with modern forensics. Private investigators, funded by the family and donations, have explored overlooked areas, like a nearby cabin where locals reported odd activity in 2004. These efforts show a case that refuses to go cold, driven by a community unwilling to give up. Legally, the case is a minefield. Without a body or clear evidence of a crime, prosecution is nearly impossible. If foul play is confirmed, statutes of limitations could bar charges for lesser crimes, like kidnapping, though murder has no such limit in New Hampshire. The knife and carpet found in 2006 remain a tantalizing clue, but without DNA or a direct link to Maura, they're legally inert. Police have never named a suspect, though online sleuths have pointed fingers at locals, Atwood, and even Bill Rash, despite his alibi. Naming a person of interest would require a major break, like a confession or new evidence, which remains elusive. Maura's case is more than a mystery. It's a cautionary tale with broader implication. It's prompted discussions about mental health support, as Maura's pre-disappearance behavior, crying at work, withdrawing from friends, suggests she was under significant stress. Colleges, including UMass, have since bolstered counseling services, partly due to cases like Maura's highlighting the pressure students face. The case has also exposed gaps in rural law enforcement. Haverhill's small police force struggled with the case's scope, lacking the manpower or technology of larger departments. This has led to calls for better training and resources for rural agencies. Comparisons to other cases deepen the context. Maura's disappearance shares similarities with that of Brianna Maitland, a 17-year-old who vanished in Vermont in March 2004, just weeks after Maura. Both were young women, last seen near their cars in rural areas, with no clear evidence. These parallels have fueled speculation about a regional predator, though no link has been proven. Maura's case also echoes older mysteries, like the 1971 disappearance of Lynn Schulz from Middlebury, Vermont, highlighting how some cases resist resolution despite time and technology. The legacy of Maura's case lies in its refusal to fade. It's a story of persistence, Fred Murray's tireless searches, volunteers' dedication, and a public that won't let go. It's also a reminder of vulnerability. Maura was a young woman alone on a dark road, a scenario that resonates with anyone who's felt exposed or uncertain. Her story has inspired safety campaigns, like those urging travelers to share itineraries or carry emergency kits. As technology advances, think AI-driven data analysis or satellite imagery, The hope persists that new tools will crack this case. Let's reflect on the bigger picture. Maura's disappearance isn't just a puzzle, it's a call to action. It challenges us to improve how we respond to missing persons cases, to support those left behind, and to stay vigilant in our own lives. Maura's case is a tapestry of questions, woven with hope and frustration. The search for truth continues, driven by those who refuse to let her name fade. Maura Murray's disappearance is a story that grips the heart and defies the mind. On February 9, 2004, a 21-year-old nursing student vanished after a car crash on a snowy new Hampshire road. The clues, her packed dorm, the liquor, the rag in the tailpipe, the absent footprints, paint a picture that's both vivid and incomplete. Was it a tragic accident in the unforgiving White Mountains, a crime that slipped through the cracks of a rural night, or a deliberate escape from a life under strain? Witnesses contradict, evidence puzzles, and the truth remains just out of reach. Yet hope endures. Fred Murray, now in his late 70s, continues his search, driven by a father's love. Investigators revisit old leads with new tools, drones, radar, forensics, that could one day break the case open. The community, from volunteers to online sleuths, keeps Maura's name alive, sharing tips and holding vigils. A single piece of evidence, a credible sighting, a hidden clue, could change everything. The New Hampshire Cold Case Unit remains active, and public interest ensures Maura's story won't be forgotten. Maura's case is a reminder of life's fragility and the power of mystery. It's a call to stay connected, to tell someone where you're going, to check in, to care. It's also a challenge to improve how we handle missing persons cases, from better police training to stronger mental health support. Maura was more than a mystery. She was a young woman with dreams, struggles, and a family who loved her. Her story resonates because it could be any of us, caught in a moment where everything changes. So, what do you think happened to Maura Murray? Was she lost to the woods, taken by a stranger, or did she slip away to start anew? Share your thoughts in the comments below, or contact the Maura Murray tip line at 600-3727-4500 or mauramurraymissing.org if you have information. Join the community seeking answers, because together we might unravel this cold case. Thank you for joining us on this 5-hour journey through the disappearance of Maura Murray, a cold case unraveling. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.